Okay, so I'm just showing the view of everybody to see how many wonderful people there are. But today, my name is Rebecca. Thank you everybody here for coming. I know that it's a evening. I know Dr. Douglas Graham is all the way in London, so it's the middle of the night for him, and somehow he agreed to this. I don't know how. But this is our Wednesday night call. We have this Wednesday night call at 7:30 every single week, Eastern time for us. We're in New York. And we've been doing this every single week for about 2 years now. And the reason why we have this Wednesday night call is because we want to help people just like you to stay on raw foods as a lifestyle, rather than something that you go up and down and yo-yo, but to have that consistency, to have that community that you can actually be consistent with. And when you do find yourself falling off, you have us to fall back on. So I've made a very conscious effort to have this community every single week so that you always know that you can fall back on us. And we've brought in all different types of speakers. We had Viktoras Kulvinskis, who is like a legend in the raw food community this summer. And now we have same level of legend, Dr. Douglas Graham today. So this is like a huge, huge honor to have you. Really, really, really huge. Yesterday, Doug called us just to like talk about what was going on. And I was like, what is my life now? How am I having a call with Dr. Douglas Graham right now? Those of you who do not know who Doug is, he is the author of the 80-10-10 book, which is a legendary book that talks about how to eat raw foods to not only heal yourself, but to improve athletic performance. And it's primarily based on fruit, so 80% protein, 80% carbohydrates, 10% protein, 10% fat. So that is something that is a little bit different than the philosophy that we teach with Perfect Foods. Perfect Foods, we are, those of you who are more of a Doug groupies, it's a pleasure to meet you. We are also leaders in the raw food community, but with a little bit of a twist. So we're wheatgrass and microgreen growers. And we got most of our education from Ann Wigmore and Viktoras Kulvinskis, which teach primarily about sprouts and wheatgrass. And it's a little bit of a twist of raw foods, but it's still with the underlying philosophy of having raw, fresh fruits and vegetables in a way to heal yourself, rather than processed foods and rather than cooked foods. So I thought this is kind of like a groundbreaking class that we're having here, because those two perspectives, the 80-10-10 versus like the Hippocrates and Wigmore communities of raw, have always kind of been like separate, but ultimately we do have a very similar foundation. So I think it's time that we come together and that we both are in this together, and you pick and you choose what you think works for you, but we learn together and we do this together. So this is a really big deal, I think, in history. So it's an honor to have you here, Doug. And without further ado, I would like to have you share a little bit about yourself, and we'll have some time at the end for questions. So along the way, I really encourage all of you to put questions in the comments, and I'll share them at the end. But I also, of course, want to take the opportunity to, let you guys know who we are as a resource, and those of you who are interested in, maintaining this diet, to see how you can use us as a resource. So at the end, we'll explain a little bit about who we are as Perfect Foods in the community and all that. So if you can stick with us, and please feel free to, comment if you want to share a story about yourself or share an experience that you've had. Like, that's the reason why we have you guys here, is to share your experiences with this, and see if we can even do this again if we need to. But I like to keep it as short as possible so that you guys don't fall asleep on me. So let's get right into it. So the first thing is I'm going to make Doug the host. Oh no, not the host. I'm going to just make him the spotlight for everybody. Cool. So yeah, Doug, please tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got to this line of work.
I was just born a regular kid, grew up in New Jersey and near the beach, a mile. And my mom was almost 5 feet tall, and hang on, my doggy is scratching. Come on in. My mom was about 5 feet tall, but I never thought of her as fat, but turns out she was. And she weighed at her most, she weighed like 160 pounds. And so when I was little, she was always trying to lose weight. Little did I know that later, a couple decades later, everybody'd be trying to lose weight. But I was a skinny kid. I was an athlete kid. I was into every kind of sport there was, and I didn't really think about health. I just figured, I had what I had, and if I was sick, that was normal, and you get well, and that's what happens. And I had chicken pox when I was 2, and I had mumps and measles at an age where I wasn't in school yet, and I could remember it, and I had all the childhood stuff, and it just seemed normal. What do I know? By the time I was a teenager, doing experimental diets was normal to me because any diet my mom went on, we all went on. That was childhood, and that just, I didn't really question it.
Get your
And
butt
then she
off of there.
discovered Weight Watchers, and
You
with
go
Weight
over there and
Watchers,
sit where you wanted to go.
Weight Watchers,
Your
I'll try
mind.
to remind everybody, if you haven't
Take
muted yourself at the moment, it would help if you did. So with Weight Watchers, they introduced like the idea of eating vegetables every night, and eating salad and eating fruit, and that became part of something we did all the time. We're still on a very, very American diet. I mean, I ate everything. The only thing I didn't eat was tongue. I couldn't tell if I was tasting it or it was tasting me. I just didn't like the idea of tongue. But everything else seemed normal enough, and we ate everything as long as it tasted good, and everything tasted good. I didn't know that being so sick in kindergarten that I missed so much school that they weren't going to let me out. My grades were perfect, but I just didn't attend that many days. I didn't know that was abnormal to be that sick, and eventually they said, take out your tonsils, and so out they went, and it was traumatic. I still remember, they used ether to put me to sleep. It's not a nice way to go to sleep. And after the tonsils came out, after that first line of defense within the body was removed, then I really started getting sick. And from 6 years old till 12, I went to allergy doctors for shots every week, and they injected poison in my arm, and it would swell up to double size. And that happened, regularly for 6 years. And I had allergies the whole time. And the doctor explained to me, one of my first lessons about health, he explained to me about antibodies. And he said, when you get sick, you produce antibodies to yourself. He said, you're allergic to yourself. And so when you get sick, you produce more antibodies, and you're allergic to those. And so you get sicker. And so you produce more antibodies. He said, you're never going to be a healthy kid because you're allergic to yourself. You're great. He also said, don't drink alcohol because you're allergic to it. And so I never really did. But this idea of like there was something wrong with my body, that was one of the first errors in the way bodies are put together that tried to be instilled. So I was a high school athlete. I was a college athlete. I was really fascinated with sports. I would be willing to try any diet in high school. We tried all different kinds of diets to keep the weight under control, just to keep performance near its edge. And I admitted had no idea what I was doing. And I remember what the experiments were, but they were insignificant and didn't make much difference. I got to college, and I'm paying for my own food, and I'm living out in an apartment, and I'm eating the cheapest things that are possibly available. And I met this girl, and she said she was a vegetarian, and I said, so am I. and in fact, I probably was, because the pasta was cheap. But I started with vegetarian, and it made sense. And I did that for 7 years, and all the time I kept hearing about vegans. And finally, after 7 years of being a vegetarian, I said, okay, let's give this vegan thing a try. And I tried vegan for just a few months. And something hit me. I have no idea how exactly it happened. I remember the first time I heard somebody tell me about raw foods. I remember who he was. I won't tell you, but I remember. And I thought he was pretty well crazy. But then I met another person telling me about raw foods. And then I started attending vegan conferences and meeting raw fooders at the vegan conference. By the time I'd met 3 of them, I said, okay, it's 7 months into vegan. I'm going to try raw vegan. And I tried raw vegan. And because it made sense, I'm going, wow, I'm looking around in the world and all the animals are eating raw food except for us. There must be something going on. And then I started hearing about the experiments that had been done back in the 1920s when Dr. Pottinger experimented with feeding cats cooked food and feeding cats raw food. And the cooked food cats did not fare well. The second generation was sick. The third generation was mangy and really sick. The fourth generation could not reproduce. Now, if I go back to when I was in college, infertility was almost unknown. But now, several generations later of eating a very, very much almost completely cooked food diet for several generations, humans are suffering infertility at rates that have never, ever been seen before. The prediction is that half the population is going to be infertile fairly soon if we just keep doing what we're doing. The other side of that is if we keep doing what we're doing, we're also supposed to have half the population be diabetic within a few more years, or pre-diabetic, so on the road. Anyway, I decided to give raw a try. I tried it. Things changed in ways that I was not ready for. I was not expecting. The biggest change is to go from a mainstream diet to become a vegetarian and make that commitment. Huge change, but not huge things happen necessarily in you. And it's a smaller change to go vegan from vegetarian. That's not a big change. But it's still something. And I didn't notice a lot. But when I went from vegan to raw, my mind blew out. All of a sudden, I could remember stuff. And when I say today, like my memory's still good. My memory's still good. I can learn things. I can remember things. When I meet people, I still know about it much later. I tried for years and years to learn foreign languages. I was always interested, but never could seem to grasp anything to do with foreign languages. As soon as I went raw, I taught myself Spanish out of books. It was easy to learn. All of a sudden I could learn. It was the mental clarity.
We're laughing. We're laughing. You go raw and all of a sudden, Spanish.
It was pretty weird.
Sounds
It
like
was
Seinfeld.
really pretty weird. But there's a thing that used to happen to me all the time, which was that words would be on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't remember what the word was. And if that's ever happened to you out there in the audience, like shake your head, you know the word, you know the word, and you just can't come up with the word. And that used to happen to me all the time. And when I went raw, and that stopped happening. I knew the word and I could say the word, and all of a sudden I could access my own vocabulary, and I could access my memories, and I could keep things in a calendar in my head and a clock in my head and this was not what I was expecting from raw foods, was that it was going to be mind-blowing mental capacity through the roof. I thought maybe I'd get
Screaming all
or something, so maybe I'd get more good looking. I didn't know what would happen. I had no idea what would happen. All I knew is that raw food made sense. I started looking, and Dr. Pottinger back in the 1920s goes, look, if you eat cooked food, bad things happen. And then there was a doctor named Maillard in the teens, 1918, 1919, a French doctor, Maillard, and he found out that when you heat foods, that they go brown. Well, that was no news really, but even today, it's still called the browning reaction of food to heat. It goes brown. But what he started studying, he was a chemist. He said, what happens? Why does it go brown? And it stimulated almost 30 years of research on this browning reaction that ended up with, by the 1950s, clear information that when you heat foods, they become, or toxins within those foods are formed, a wide variety of toxins, from carcinogens, which cause cancer, to mutagens, which accelerate the aging process because the cell doesn't reproduce itself perfectly, to tremorogens, things that give you the shakes and the bob, and tremorogens and tumorigens, things that cause us to grow tumors, and even teratogens, things that don't really seem to affect us, but they affect our offspring or the next generation or the third generation, as we saw with thalidomide back in the 60s, when thalidomide didn't adversely affect the moms who were suffering with migraines or whatever they had, but their babies were born with no arms and no legs, just hands and feet. Hands coming out. This is the thalidomide child, and it was a terrible, terrible teratogen. So all of those things are formed when we heat raw foods, because all food is made of what are called hydrocarbons, and it's a mixture of hydrogen and carbon. And hydrocarbons, when we cook them until there's nothing left at all, you end up with ashes like you see in a fireplace. But when you partially combust them, you end up with what's called PCH. Now, if you're a West Coast person, you know that means Pacific Coast Highway, but for the rest of us, that means partially combusted hydrocarbons. And when we partially combust hydrocarbons, the scientists have shown us that a wide variety of toxins are formed, including the ones I mentioned, and a bunch of things known as anti-nutrients. Now, we've heard of antioxidants. Well, we damage the antioxidants, but then we also form anti-nutrients, which are substances that pick out specific nutrients and increase your need for them. They diminish your ability to access or increase your need. So, for instance, when you're out on a city street and you're jogging behind a bus and you're breathing bus fumes, and then you run past a cigarette smoker and you breathe a little cigarette smoke, all of those things increase your need for vitamin C. So pollution is an anti-nutrient for vitamin C. A wide array of anti-nutrients are formed when we cook food. So to me, just from the science of it, I started looking and I go, okay, let's see. And when I went through my medical training, I learned what happens to the big three nutrients, the protein, fat, and carbohydrate, and bad things happen there again. When we heat them, proteins become inaccessible, according to the physiologists, because proteins form enzyme-resistant bonds when they're heated. We don't enzyme resistant. It's kind of a British thing, right? And bonds, enzyme-resistant bonds, and then all of a sudden, once you can't break down a protein into its component amino acids, instead all you have is these bigger chunks of dipeptides and polypeptides. Well, those things aren't absorbed easily from the gut into the bloodstream. So they start putting pressure, they start to damage the access points. You can end up with what's called leaky gut syndrome. You end up with allergic responses. You end up with what's known as a white tide, where your white blood cell count, which is normal at about 3 million, surges up to 18 million after every cooked meal. This is a very negative reaction. This is an emergency on the part of the body. It would be like if your temperature went from 100 to 600. I mean, this would be really bad, So to go from 3 million to 18 million, this is unheard of. It would be like if your heart rate went from 60 to 360. This is, I mean, this is high emergency state, and it happens every time we cook food. So I started learning the science, and by the time I have all this science, I'm going like, this raw food thing is making more and more sense. It's making science. It's working for me. But I want to be an athlete. I got to figure out how to make this work. So I went to every raw food leader in the world and asked him, how do I make it work? I said, I'm an athlete and I want to be a raw fooder because it makes sense. And I asked Viktoras Kulvinskas. I went to him, said, Viktoras, here's the story. If you were going to create a diet for an athlete, would it be cooked or raw? And he said it would be raw. And I asked Virginia Vitrano, a woman who's fasted more people than anybody in history, and said, Virginia, if you were going to create a diet for an athlete, would it be cooked or raw for maximum performance? And she said it would be raw, for sure, it would be raw. And I asked Johnny Love Wisdom, who was living out in Hawaii back then. And I said, well, if you were going to create a diet, cooked or raw for top performance? He goes, raw, of course. And I asked the fourth leader, who was the only, there was only 4 back then, or at least only 4 I could find out about that were alive. And that was TC Fry. So I asked Terry, I said, Terry, if you were going to create a diet for an athlete, would it be cooked or raw? And he said raw. I said the second question to all 4 of them was, okay, so what would that diet look like? What would the diet for top performance look like? And they all said to me the exact same words. They all said, I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. All we know how to do is get sick people well on raw foods. That we know how to do. But for athletic performance, no idea. You're going to have to figure that out yourself. So I did. And I just tried everything until I found something that worked. And I just kept trying things. And eventually I you know what I did? I did what I was told. How about them apples? When I was 8 years old, I was in 3rd grade, and the nurse's station was right across the nurse's office was right across from my 3rd grade room. So every day I'd see her door, and when the door was open, she had a sign on the door, like a piece of paper, a flyer, I guess you'd call it, poster or something. And all it had on it was a picture of an apple. And do you know what it said under the apple?
Eat your
Yeah,
food.
it said an apple a day keeps the doctor away. That was my first nutrition lesson. I was 8 years old. And then when I was 12, I had a teacher named Jim Asbell, and he was my health teacher, and he taught us lots of stuff, but I remember him driving home the point that athletes need to eat more fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables are good for you, I was told as a child. Eat your vegetables, I was told as a child. Fruit was easy because it's sweet and juicy, and our natural inclination is to eat sweet and juicy. That's why we have a sweet tooth. It drives us in that direction. People trying to control their sweet tooth, they might as well say, I'm never going to pee again, That's not going to happen. You got a sweet tooth for a reason. You had milk teeth when you were a baby telling you it was time to be eating mama's milk. And when those hormones change and you stop producing what it takes to digest mother's milk, those milk teeth fall out. And then what grows in are sweet teeth. Those are your secondary teeth. driving you to eat sweet and juicy. Life is sweet and juicy.
Life is
So
super easy, baby.
at some point, people decided to pervert sweet and juicy fruit and have cake and coffee instead, have milk and ice cream, have, pie and ice cream, or, waffles with honey on it. And they're going, I'm going to get my sweet and juicy that way. Well, yeah, except the nutrient content is negative. It's not just zero, it's negative. So I experimented. And what I found out was that I could do raw and be an athlete if I had fruit for breakfast. But I had no idea how much fruit. That was an experiment that I had to do again and again and again. How much fruit is enough fruit to hold me all the way till lunch? Basically, that's what I needed, was enough fruit to hold me until lunch. And then I have a salad, and then I have another salad, and I'd be raw for a few weeks or a few months. And the next thing I know, I'm crash and burn. I'm back to cooked food. And I went back to cook food at least 17 times that I can recall. After committing to being an all raw food person, I remember going back to cooked again and again and again. I was driven back. It wasn't even choice. I mean, it was just driven. Somewhere's around the 17th time, I realized that it was always the same food. It was always bread, rice, pasta, corn, potatoes, oats. It was always starch. It was always complex carbohydrates. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, we used to have arts and crafts in school. Every once in a while, we'd paint. I didn't like that back then, although I like to paint now. And once in a while, what we would get is we'd get scissors, which is a big deal, right? We'd get scissors with round edges and paper, colored paper, and paste. You remember school paste?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you remember what it tastes like?
I don't know.
Somebody in every classroom ate the paste, but the teacher told us don't eat the paste.
So you ate it.
I never ate it. I mean, no, but I knew a kid who ate it, Timothy, but we were told don't eat the paste. Don't eat paste, we were told. Okay. What is paste? Paste is just flour and water. You want to make wallpaper paste, it's just flour and water. You want to make paste for kids to, paste one piece of paper to another and make a collage or a pretty picture. It's just flour and water, but they put salt in it so that it doesn't go moldy too quickly. Otherwise, flour and water will go moldy, in a day or two, and school paste has to last all year. So they put salt in it too. But that's a preservative. Okay, mold just can't grow in salt. So we've got this challenge now. In high school, I'm listening to Joe Rosati. He's the head football coach. He's the athletic director. I worked with him in summers as a lifeguard at a swim club near the ocean. And so I knew Joe Rosati since I was a kid. And Joe Rosati, turns out, was my health teacher going through high school. And you know what he told us? He said, fruits and vegetables are good for you. And I'm thinking, that's not the first time I've heard that. I've heard apple a day, fruits, Mr. Asbell and Joe Rosati. Now, I don't know if anybody here knows Joe Rosati. Maybe you do. He's kind of famous because he was the man who said, okay, boys, pair up in threes. And I'm still trying to figure out what that meant. Anyway, you said be funny. I think that's a very funny line, pair up in threes. I don't know how to deal with that exactly, but so I went to college, and in college I studied physical education, but I also took every nutrition course offered because I was fascinated by nutrition at this point, and I'm vegetarian and I'm fascinated, and I'm taking all the nutrition courses that are offered. And wow, I learned a lot in college nutrition. What I found out is that fruits and vegetables are good for you. As if that was the first time I'd heard that. Eat more fruits and vegetables, I was told. You got to eat your vegetables. Got to eat fruit. Okay, eat fruits and vegetables. So, and then I went on through my medical training and took nutrition every semester of school. That's one of the things chiropractors do different than medical doctors. So I took nutrition, every nutrition course offered all the way through 4 years of medical school. And well, technically chiropractic training. And I found out the coolest thing. Fruits and vegetables are good for you. Like so when I'm telling you that when I finally decided to go raw, I just did what I was told. I just ate fruits and vegetables. And this is what I was told. I was told fruits and vegetables are good for you, Doug, but you can't eat just fruits and vegetables. I'm going, wait a minute. Fruits and vegetables are better for me than anything else I could possibly eat, but I need to eat other things that aren't as good for me because that's good for me, that's better for me than eating the best stuff? I do not understand, does not compute. So I started thinking about what else doesn't compute. There's a lot of stuff doesn't compute. You know, we're not naming names, but there's people in the world. Well, somebody said recently, because there's been a little, this little upheaval in the last couple of years. And so somebody said one of the things that makes it impossible for people to see the truth is when their livelihood depends on them not seeing the truth. How true. So there's people who make a living teaching us that starch is the perfect food for human beings. Now, we're on good ground here, Rebecca, because you're not teaching people to eat starch as the perfect food. We know you got to cook starch for the most part. There's ways around it, but for the most part, you got to cook starch to eat it because it's indigestible. It's called complex carbohydrate because it's too complex to digest, as opposed to the simple carbohydrates, which are all sugars that require no digestion. They're so simple you can just absorb them as is. They're simple to digest. They're easy. All simple carbohydrates taste sweet, but the complex carbohydrates have no taste. Look it up in the dictionary. Starch is tasteless. It's not bland or mild, it's tasteless. So Rebecca and I had a conversation last night. You know, if you had to eat food that was tasteless in order to be healthy, would you do it for very long? And the answer is no. Nobody would eat food that tastes of nothing. Like, who wants that? Doesn't matter how good it is for you. But I am going somewhere. Where am I going? You know, if you start with flour and water, what do you end up with? You end up with paste. And if you start with flour and water and eggs, you end up with pasta, egg pastry, egg pasta. And if you start with flour and water and eggs and sugar, you end up with pastry. So the Italians weren't very good at hiding the fact that it was paste. They called it pasta. And the French weren't any better. They called it pastry. And the Spanish, I think they call it pastels. They're cookies. They call them pastels, right? I mean, nobody's hiding the fact that it's paste. In every language, it's paste. And I'm left wondering, I'm just a wondering guy, you know, like, I don't know. I'm just a kid trying to figure stuff out. There's no book on this stuff. And I'm going, when I was in school, my teacher said, don't eat the paste. And now I'm listening to the health doctors and they're telling us we're natural born paste eaters. We're supposed to eat paste. Paste is good for you. Yeah. But because it has no flavor, add salt to it, because otherwise you probably won't like it.
Salt and oil.
And
And I'm
sugar.
going, wait a minute.
Like,
Salt's deadly poison. In China, that's how people commit suicide. They eat an ounce of salt and die. Like, why would I want to add salt? The doctors tell us don't eat salt. And then the health doctors are telling us eat salt, add it to your paste, and it'll make it palatable for you. At least it'll be palatable. And I'm going, what happened to sweet and juicy? I like sweet and juicy. I've got every doctor in the world telling us eat 8 to 12 glasses, drink 8 to 12 glasses of water a day because you're all dehydrated. And then the health doctors are telling us to eat paste. I mean, how much more dehydrated can we get? There's some very famous people in the health field world who got famous selling juicers, promoting juices. I never saw anybody juice toast. Like, how much juice is there in pasta? There's no bake a potato and get baked potato juice. It just doesn't happen. Right. And I'm going, it's a carbohydrate.
we've juiced sweet potatoes.
You could,
It's raw.
you could.
Raw sweet potatoes we've juiced. Okay, I'm gonna reel you in for a second. You ready?
Wow. Like how, but it's a carbohydrate. Where's the hydrate part?
Right.
Well, it's
Right.
complex. It's too complex to digest.
Right.
So if you want to get the sweet and juicy, you got to eat simple carbohydrates. You got to eat more fruit. And I went off that wagon over and over and over again, like I said, at least 17 times. And eventually realized I needed to eat more fruit. So I
Yep.
eat more fruit. I eat fruit for breakfast. I eat fruit for lunch. I eat fruit before my dinner salad. And then I have the biggest salad as big as you guys have. I eat a ton of vegetables as part of my dinner meal, and I'm a happy camper. Comments, questions, go ahead. We've done a third of the show.
Okay, you did a third of the show for sure. That was awesome. Okay, and I kind of want to sum up what I got from it, and I'm curious if you guys can comment below maybe one nugget of information that you got from it that you enjoyed, a golden nugget, I like to say, one thing that you learned so far or that you found interesting so far. But for me, what I got from that was you're just an average guy looking to level up. You actually didn't have any underlying health issues. And you know, went from one thing to the next kind of like almost randomly. And then when you went raw, you saw the benefits of it and then you wanted to optimize it. I liked how you said about, well, if I know that fruits and vegetables are good, why do I have to eat something else? Like everybody tells you that. And even in the health industry, naturopathic doctors, so many people will tell you, no, you can't just have raw fruits and vegetables. But why, if we know that raw fruits and vegetables are the best, why would we have anything else? And I think a lot of that does have to do with addiction. And it has to do with the emotional aspects of wanting to have those starchy things and the way that they taste. And it's
Has
easier.
to do with FOMO, you mean?
FOMO, yeah, but yeah, FOMO, right. And you get rid of that addiction once you stick to it for a long time. But like just seeing those foods and knowing, remembering what they taste like. So there is an aspect of reality there that I think a lot of people here would like to tap into, because it's one thing to be like, really strong about it, like you are at this point in your life after the 17 times of going through it. But it's another thing to be like, okay, how do I actually stick to this? How do I have not only the mental strength to stick to it, but what are the actual things that I need to eat in order to get enough calories for me to not have to yo-yo? I think that that's really one of the main reasons why I wanted to bring you on, was to share, what does a day look like for you? What does a day look like for a 130-pound woman? What does a day look like me, really to kind of break it down for us a little bit. I don't know if you go through that or if it's really specialized to each individual person. But that, I think, is the concrete stuff that people would like to hear. Like Yuri, I'm not going to call you out completely, but Yuri is a really cool guy here. He is a professional boxer and athlete, and his wife has been kind of bringing him into the raw foods world. They're vegan completely, but they've been a lot more raw. And I don't know if Yuri, you want to share anything, but he's a perfect person for this, because I'm sure you're trying to be a little bit more raw. You have anything you want to share, Yuri? Oh, you're
Got to unmute yourself first. Bottom left corner, unmute yourself. We'll wait.
What
I've
is
worked with a lot
FOMO?
of pro boxers, so, well, mostly amateur boxers, but some national champion boxers.
Still don't hear me.
Do we have you yet?
I
Bottom
think
left
we
corner,
have
there's the
to-
thing that says.
Oh, no,
unmute.
you're not muted. So it's,
What?
you're not muted, so it's something else.
I think his headphones are still plugged in, maybe.
The headphones are plugged in, maybe. Okay, I'll remove you from the spotlight for now. Figure it out and it'll come back in. But
You guys used the word FOMO earlier. What's that?
Fear of missing out.
Oh,
Monkey see, monkey want.
thank you.
Okay, and also big thanks to Richard Ricky. He is the one who connected the two of us, and he did my program 2 years ago, my Raw Vegan Cleanse program. And he's been a big person in our community helping, because we have like a private WhatsApp group chat that helps people who are trying to do this program and to live this way regularly. So he's been he's a chiropractor as well and has been helping people, and he connected the two of us. So I think that you guys have met, right?
I was remiss because I wanted to start the show by saying thank you, Richard. If I could hug you right now, it would be the highlight of my day. So
Yeah,
please
I'm
accept
a
my
big fan
hug.
of Dr. Doug. He is the guy. This is an amazing guy. You can't go wrong listening to this guy. So I'm happy to have connected y'all for sure.
Thank you. This is a huge gift for both of us. And seriously, thank you to you just for being a part of this community, because you've taught me so much and you've helped a lot of the people in my program to go by. So public thank you to Ricky.
Very cool. Thank you very much.
I have a question about how much, because you didn't mention in your diet, your example diet, how much seeds and nuts could you eat, let's say in a week? Avocado, seeds and nuts, like how much would be okay?
So 80-10-10 is a guideline. And as Rebecca said at the beginning, what I'm looking for is to get somewheres around 80% of my calories from carbohydrates. And for athletes, generally, they want to go above 80% because they're more concerned with performance than, say, a layperson is. But the cool thing is, as we've learned in so many fields of endeavor, that if you do what other people do, you're going to get what other people get. And whether that's lung cancer from smoking cigarettes or healthy from eating fruits and vegetables. So I encourage people that are willing to, if they want to do the mathematics or do the websites and actually chart. I've never been good at doing that. I only do it because I have to in order to answer questions. But we want to see people eating more than 80% of their calories from carbohydrates. And that we find in Formula One racing, they call it the mix. You know, how much of the different burnable liquids get mixed in together to create the perfect fuel for the F1 race car, or for the dragsters. They use a different mix, each one of these kinds of cars. And for humans, the mix is 80-10-10. And doctors from every field of endeavor have come up with that same conclusion. A tremendous number of animals that are built like us eat 80-10-10 in nature or very close to it when they can get their food of choice. So by the time you allow carbohydrate, now just for an example, I mean, in a standard Western diet, about 45% of the calories come from carbohydrate. So it's about double. We double up the carbohydrates, which means something has to go. Now, all the way around the world, everybody eats the same amount of protein, no matter what diet they're on. They eat very, very close to 10% of their calories from protein. In some places, it's 9. In some places, it's 11, but very close to 10% of calories from protein. And so, and I don't argue with that, but the scientists tell us that 10 should be about the upper limit of protein consumption, that actually 3 to 10 is enough. And if you consume 3% of your calories from protein as an adult, you're getting enough. Whereas mother's milk is all of 6% protein. But babies are growing faster than adults ever plan to grow. They're going through the fastest growth spurt known to human life, and it's only 6% protein. You have
So-
something to say?
Yes, I want to share about the different, and in the book, those of you who have Dr. Doug's book,
There's people who don't.
that I'm sure, probably not, definitely not.
We
sorry.
need to correct that.
If you don't, go buy it right now. But there's plenty of meal plans. And this is kind of what I want to dissect, because if I were to go and eat the 80-10-10 diet, I want to know that I'm doing it right. And I want to know that I can do it and that I fully understand it. So,
Okay. So there's a couple ways to know you're doing it right without getting. Okay, there's a couple of ways to know that you're doing it right or that you're doing it wrong. And each of those ways agrees with each other. So that's kind of nice. It's not like, well, if I do it this way, it's this answer. And if I do it this way, it's this answer. Okay, if you're experiencing cravings, you're not doing it right. First of all, if you're experiencing cravings for sweets in between meals, you haven't eaten enough fruit at the last meal, or the fruit you ate wasn't sweet enough. Okay. If you're experiencing cravings for sweets at the end of a meal, like, oh, I'm happy, but I want dessert, then you didn't eat enough fruit at the beginning of that meal or for that meal, if fruit was the whole meal. But usually that's a dinner meal experience where you start with a little fruit, or you just want to get to the vegetables so badly that you forego the fruit. But then afterwards, you're looking around for something to eat. If you're craving something to eat, you didn't eat enough fruit 9 times
that's
out of
always the
10.
answer. But what if you're craving something like salty,
Something like what?
or like you want potatoes?
Right. Well, we're going to go there. If you're craving complex carbohydrates, if you think after listening to this talk that paste is food and you're craving complex carbohydrates, you haven't been eating enough fruit. Okay. Or if you're looking for refined sugars, whether that's candy or alcohol or chocolate or anything else, if you're looking for refined, concentrated fruits, dried fruits, even if you're looking for concentrated sugars, you haven't been eating enough fruit. There's only 2 other cravings. Okay. One of them is, as you just said, if you're looking for something salty. Now, usually when people are looking for something salty, they want to put it on something starchy, but that's a separate issue. They haven't had enough fruit and they're having a salty craving. But anytime you crave salty stuff, it's a red light, brilliant red warning sign that you're not eating enough vegetables day in and day out. You get all the salts you need from your vegetables, and you should never have to add salt to food. I haven't eaten salt now in 50 years, and I'm not looking back. And that's 5 cravings. Okay. There is a 6th craving, but it only happens maybe 1 in 1,000 people. And this person would be like a 5'3" lady who weighs 68 pounds. And she goes, I tried that raw food thing, but it didn't work. Next thing I knew, I was eating fried fish. And I'm going, yeah, you were starving to death. You weren't eating anywhere near enough food, and you needed calories. You didn't care what they were. But that almost never happens. It's a very special kind of thing for people who are that's a very unique. No, I hate to say that. It's not a very unique. It's a rare occurrence. But I have met people who just go, man, I just need a calorie. Invariably, they're like crazy thin, unhealthfully thin.
You're just not eating enough. Okay, so
we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, no, but
The
that
average
was really
person,
helpful.
though, the average person will thrive eating fruit for breakfast. How much fruit? Enough fruit so that you're satisfied until lunch.
Yep.
And that requires experimentation because, in your head, how many slices of pizza it takes or how many sandwiches it takes or whatever. But we don't have experience with how many blueberries does it take to make breakfast. We don't know. But we do know that it takes a lot of blueberries to hold you for 3 hours until lunch.
Yeah.
There'd be a lot more blueberries than anybody's ever eaten in a meal, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I've done that where I lived on blueberries for a few days, and it's a lot of blueberries.
A lot of
It's
blueberries.
a lot of blueberries.
Okay.
But the answer is enough fruit to hold you until the next meal, just like it would be for anything else.
Yep.
But if you're experiencing cravings, you didn't eat enough fruit. Chances are you haven't been. Most people don't have any idea how much it really is. And so I would encourage people to err on the side of caution. Have an extra couple of bites or have an extra piece of fruit rather than see how little can I get away with eating. Because if you, another way to know is if you're losing weight. If you're gradually losing weight on a raw food diet and you don't want to be, you're probably not eating enough. I mean, that
But
would
what
be
if you
true
do
for
want
any
to?
diet.
I mean,
Sorry?
that's easy. The easy answer is just, like, what if you do want to lose it, but you want to be raw and you're eating abundance? Like, what's the happy medium there with this?
Yeah. So if you do want to lose, and that's a common thing because people on a starchy diet, I mean, they bloat up, right? So the trick with weight loss that I've found, and I grew up in a weight loss household. Let's remember, my mom worked for Weight Watchers for 25 years while I was still a kid. The trick with weight loss is that if you try to lose too quickly, you go off the deep end. So if you only have 3 or 4 pounds to lose, it's really no big deal. You can do almost whatever you want. But we have to distinguish between losing water weight and losing body fat. Water weight fluctuates all the time, but that's not really who we are. When we're trying to lose weight, we're talking about losing fat. And a pound of fat's 3,500 calories. So in order to lose a pound of fat, you have to have a 3,500 calorie deficit over whatever period of time you want to have it. Now, if that's over a month, so that you just had a deficit of 100 calories a day, you hardly notice it and you're just fine. And you lose a pound a month and all is well in the world. And 10 years later, you've lost 120 pounds and Rebecca, you're down to 8 pounds and things are bad in your world, right? You didn't want to lose that much.
Yeah.
But somebody who wants to lose 400 pounds says, yeah, but I want to lose it yesterday. And I go, well, you didn't gain it yesterday. You can't sustain. It's funny, there's a funny side to this. And the funny side is that people are eating really well and getting very concerned about their nutrition. Whereas people are eating pure crap and they're not even worried about their nutrition. It's the people eating at McDonald's that should be worrying about nutrition, not the people that are trying to decide whether they should be eating fruits or vegetables at the very next meal. That's not a worry. And in that same sense, we have to understand that if you cut your calories, let's say you cut 500 calories a day, and you go, I'm going to maintain a calorie deficit of 500 calories a day. I'm going to lose a pound of fat a week. Well, that's fast weight loss. It's hard to sustain yourself. You start craving pretty quickly we're only talking about a person eating 1,500, 2,000 calories a day, and now they want a 500 calorie deficit. That's a big deficit. When you read this stuff about lose 20 pounds over the weekend, that's not body fat. You can't do that. That's not real. But we hear stories and then we go, oh, I want to lose quickly too. No, you really don't. What you want to do is you want to lose slowly enough so that when you're ready to stop losing, you need to make almost no change in your diet whatsoever. And then you just go, and now I'm going to maintain. I'll have one more cherry and it'll be enough to make me maintain. It won't be much.
Right.
Because that
Cool.
little difference would be the difference between losing and maintaining.
Cool.
You try to lose fast, you're going to end up off the program.
Yep.
On whatever diet it is. But nobody seems to worry. Let's say you're eating 2,000 calories a day and you're the most motivated weight loss person ever, and you cut to 1,000 a day and you go, I'm going to allow myself 1,000 a day and I'm going to drop weight. I'm going to lose a kilo. I'm going to lose 2.2 pounds per week of body fat on 1,000 calorie deficit per day. And nobody ever brings up the fact that that means you're eating half as much as usual. Taking in half as much vitamin C, half as much iron, half as much calcium, half as much protein, half as much omegas, half as much of everything, because you're only eating half as much. Nobody seems to be worried about nutrition while they're trying to lose weight.
Well-
Meanwhile, while we're eating enough to maintain, because it's impossible to be well nourished and lose weight,
Huh.
because you're eating half as much, or you're eating a caloric deficit.
Unless.
Oh, unless you eat the best foods for humans,
Right.
fruits and vegetables.
Okay. In the name of time, I'm going to keep asking you questions. So
2/3 done.
2/3 done. Yeah. Okay. So those of you who put questions, I am going to get to. We'll probably have another, like, if
10,
you guys
15
are okay
minutes?
with that. Yeah, 15 minutes. But I have a couple more questions, so we're gonna have to.
So can I sum up in one little sentence and then you ask your questions?
Yeah.
So it's all the fruit you want for breakfast, all the fruit you want for lunch, all the fruit you want for dinner, followed by all the vegetables you want, and if you would like, some nuts and seeds, because there's still that 10% part of, if you're eating 2,000 calories a day, so you eat 200 calories from fat, that's almost 3 ounces of nuts or 3 ounces of seeds, or not quite a whole avocado, but almost a whole avocado for a lady. For a guy, and you're eating 3,000 calories a day, life is good. You can eat the whole avocado.
Okay, that gives a good idea, because like we say for like a cleansing, losing weight, it's very different from what you say, but it's still low fat, because we only have about like 3 avocados a week.
Yeah.
It's like,
No.
Of course.
yeah.
Well,
That
when you're
is
at,
what
when
it
you're
is.
Optimum Health Institute, only like a half of an avocado in a week,
No.
or a whole avocado in a week.
Well, in my
One in a
program,
week,
it's
yeah,
three
yeah.
a week. But anyway, okay, so here we have like a winter menu plan, day 1.
So, so you're saying that they're starving you basically, because the only thing they're
But you're
giving you
not
is
starving
vegetables.
though, because you don't feel hungry. And that's just the bottom line.
Yeah, you
of-
don't
you
feel
don't feel
hungry.
hungry, but that's
For
just
the
the bottom
first
line.
week.
No, when
How
you're
long?
there, you don't
How
feel
long
hungry.
could you do that for and not
You
feel
can
hungry?
continue to do it because it has the balance of the fats and everything. You don't feel hungry when you eat this way. You really don't. But if you're starting to crave the other things, I do think that the fruit helps. That's why I brought you on, is like I do think that the fruit helps with the cravings a little bit. So anyway, this is what a winter menu plan would be, that on page 210. Breakfast would be 2 bananas, a banana milk. So you blend the bananas with water. Lunch would be 2 persimmons. And then dinner would be, 2 pounds of persimmons. Sorry, 2 pounds. Oh, 2 pounds of bananas and
Thank
2
you.
pounds of persimmons. Okay, that's different.
How
How
many-
much
That's about
do you
six. That's about 6 to 7 bananas.
Okay, 6 to 7 bananas, and then persimmons, probably like 10.
3 to 4.
Oh,
No,
really?
persimmon has more calories than bananas.
They're heavy. Okay. So 3 persimmons. Okay. And then for dinner, we have 3 courses. One is an 8-ounce papaya, the papaya and orange smoothie. So an 8-ounce papaya, an 8-ounce fresh squeezed orange juice, put together. And then course 2 is orange verde soup, which is 8 ounces of romaine lettuce and then 8 ounces of oranges. Blend that together. And then the third course is orange walnut salad. So lettuce, oranges, and walnuts, which
Yeah, because it's
the
winter.
perfect foods, add in some sprouts instead of romaine lettuce.
Of course. Or iceberg
Together
lettuce.
with it. Right together with it.
Doesn't
Okay,
matter
so
what kind of lettuce.
why do you have this big, heavy dinner? of 3 courses.
Okay, so basically you go to bed and you breathe for 8 hours, you know, you don't eat for maybe 12 hours. And every time you exhale, you lose moisture. Meanwhile, your kidneys are pulling liquid out of your system. So in the morning, you need a water-rich meal. So we typically recommend that in the morning, your meal is a big water meal. It's a water-rich meal. But by the midday, when you're being active and there might be a good long while between lunch and dinner, you need to get some carbohydrates in you, and that's going to be the richer meal, whether it's persimmon or banana or both or whatever. That happened to be a winter season option when persimmons were available. At the dinner meal, you know, you're not going to be eating again for 12 hours. You put in a big day, you're tired, you're looking for a little bit of stimulation, a little bit of excitement in your food. We throw in some variety, make it a 3-course meal. And this is it's a big meal in terms of volume. So the first meal was big in terms of water. The second was big in terms of carbohydrate. The third is a big meal in terms of volume, because the volume of vegetables, I'm sure anybody on almost any vegan program is asked, like, how do you eat all those vegetables? You know, but I eat a big salad every day. A friend of mine calls it the cubic foot salad. You know, if you're eating about a cubic foot of salad, that's about right.
That's how
At
you know
least
you're
for a
doing it.
guy, you know,
And
the
it's
girl
good to
maybe
have the big bowls too. That helps a lot
big. They
too.
don't make
Fill up
bowls
the
big
bowl.
enough for vegans, you know, for
Oh,
raw
yeah, you
vegan.
want to have a nice big bowl so that you can make sure that you're eating enough. That's something that I noticed too. Somebody asked about dressings. Do you make fatty dressings like with tahini,
Sure. Sure.
avocado and stuff?
To make a dressing, you know, a dressing is what we learned is oil and vinegar, right? But basically, really what that is an acid and a fat. So any acid, I don't care if it's lemon, lime, pineapple, kiwi, strawberry, doesn't
Orange.
matter. Any acid
Do you do
combined.
apple cider vinegar?
No, I use food.
Okay.
I don't use things out of bottles, box, bags, cans. I'm using food. Vinegar is just acetic acid, 19 parts water and 1 part acetic acid, which is a toxic poison that your liver excretes. I would not add that back in for any reason. But any food acid, like I said, pineapple works really well. Kiwi, I like orange. I'm
I
particularly
love
fond of
oranges.
lime.
I love oranges and tahini or oranges and
Yeah,
like
and then you add any fat you
ginger.
like.
Yeah, you make a really
You
nice like
you
pad
add
thai.
any fat, whether it's orange and avocado or whether it's lime and tahini.
Mhm.
And then after that, if you want to make bigger dressings, there's a whole group of vegetables that you could blend in. You could blend in zucchini into your dressings and it'll give you
I love
more
to cook.
dressing. I call it volumizing because some people like a lot of dressing on their salad. In our family, we like a lot of dressing rather than a really strong dressing.
Yeah. I
And
like
then if you
putting,
want to add herbs or spices or whatever you want to do, I mean, I'm pretty relaxed about that. The point is that we're trying to get people to eat more fruits and vegetables.
right. But the dressing helps with that. Okay, I'm gonna do another
Absolutely.
day.
Dressing
I'm gonna-
makes the salad.
Dressing makes a salad. I'm gonna go for another day so that we can look at what that is. And are these meals for like what sized person?
2,000 pounds for the average, 2,000 calories for the average lady.
Okay, cool. So, okay, day 2 in the winter meal plan, because that's like what we're getting into. Citrus salad, which is funny. This is something that we make. 8 ounces of grapefruit, 1 pound of Valencia oranges, and 1 pound sweet tangerines. Peel the fruits, cut them into a bowl, and enjoy the contrasting flavors. Experiment with all the different varieties of oranges and tangerines. Blood oranges make an excellent addition or substitution to this salad. So it's just like a citrus salad. Cool. Then we've got for lunch, banana celery smoothie. 2 pounds of banana, 4 ounces of celery. Now, according to Food Combining, isn't that funky or it's fine? It's
No,
probably
celery and
fine.
lettuce, all celery and all lettuce are what are known as universal combiners. They will mix with anything and everything,
Okay, cool.
as are most stone fruit, which will also mix with almost anything. So you can put a mango with anything and it works.
Cool. Okay, so cut the celery into small pieces to sever the fibers, make them easier to blend, and you're just blending bananas and celery together.
Yes, it's really simple.
Interesting. Okay. Course 1 is fresh squeezed orange juice. So you're having a nice big 16-ounce glass of fresh squeezed orange juice.
Yeah, all you want.
Then course 2 is cabbage tomato soup. 8 ounces of fresh squeezed orange juice, 8 ounces of cabbage, and 4 ounces of romaine lettuce, and 4 ounces of tomatoes. Blend the orange juice, cabbage, and lettuce. Pour the puree into a large serving bowl and sprinkle some diced tomato. Sounds a little funky, but I'm sure it's good.
It's very good.
Course 3 is orange fennel slaw. That sounds good. I love fennel. 8 ounces of cabbage, 1 pound of orange, and 1 shoot of fennel top. And then you chop all that up and you have a nice big salad. All right, that sounds cool. And really, I think like when it comes to this, I say this to my people too, it's about having a produce mindset. So when you go to the supermarket, and probably with this, I probably would end up going to like my local like smaller market and ask them for like the bulk, like because my ShopRite wouldn't do this, but like maybe if I go to like a local guy, he would just give me like wholesale or closer to that to get a big bulk thing. Because in order to eat this quantity, it would be expensive to get.
No, I don't spend a lot of money on food. Oh, it would be expensive if you bought it piece by piece.
Yes. But if
Yes,
you get it
but I
wholesale
don't
in
spend a
bulk,
lot of money on food. I buy all my fruit by the case, and I buy
Yeah.
it from a guy who a street market actually is once a week. There's a street market not that far from me. So I go there, I place my order 2 days early, and he's got it ready for me. And I buy all my fruit from the street market. And then I go to the local grocery store to get my organic lettuce, organic celery, organic cucumbers, because I can't get them anywhere else but the grocery store. They have tied that up.
yep.
If I can't grow it, I have to buy it from the grocery store, along with if I want organic apples or grapes, those are grocery store items.
So let's
For
keep
me.
looking at just a couple minutes on looking at other recipe ideas of what you talk about in order to get this quantity. Because I think this
Yeah.
is really the key, is like figuring out what do I eat in order to get this quantity. So like, okay, I see a really cool recipe here on page 214, the 3rd course of dinner, pineapple tahini salad. That sounds cool. So
Mm,
we've got an 8-ounce
divine.
lettuce, 8-ounce cucumbers, 4 ounces of pineapple, 1 ounce of raw mechanically hulled tahini. Chop up the lettuce into a bowl, peel and slice the cucumbers, mix with the lettuce, peel and core the pineapple, and blend with tahini and dress the salad. So that sounds awesome to me. And I will say that like my mind is going to like, how would I make this like Beckified? Like what would I make? What would I add to these recipes?
Sprouts.
I would add for sure to these salads, I would add sprouts. And I think
That's
to
because you have
anybody-
access to sprouts.
True. We have access to it. Anybody has access to it if you can get
I like
seeds.
sprouts. I'm all in favor. Eat all the sprouts you want.
Yeah, so anybody who has seeds, I find that they really help me with cravings. Now, I've never eaten the level of fruit that you recommend. So for me, my go-to for cravings is sprouts. They've helped me to get that level of nutrition. But I'm going to experiment now with more fruit.
Sure,
and
you're
see
going to
what
do a
tastes-
month of 80-10-10, right?
Yeah, and you're going to do a
So you
month
can
of sprouts.
so you can report back to people.
Yes, I really am. So yeah, I think microgreens and sprouts would be great to add to these salads to make it more
Of course.
interesting. And I've been noticing in the Instagram community, like Nate and Lissa, a lot of the people are getting much more into microgreens now, just like for the fun of diversifying their salads. So those of you who are wanting to eat this way, I think tons of fruits and then making the salads as abundant as possible with different types of greens and microgreens and stuff like that would be really cool. And then, yeah, just continuously looking at these recipes for what are ideas of how to be eating. I'm gonna do you have any immediate questions?
One thing I wanted to ask was about we do this, Rebecca came up with a smoothie that is pineapple and pear and 1 pear, quarter of a pineapple, and a package of our broccoli sprouts, broccoli microgreens. And it's
Mhm.
really delicious because you can't really taste the greens. It looks green, but you mostly taste the pineapple and the pear, but you get that, you're getting a lot of the nutrients from the sprouts at the same time. So that's like something, would you think that something like that would be good for breakfast, for lunch? Or is it more like your lunch kind of, or you don't have any greens that you were listing at all in lunch?
I wasn't listing them. I'm not avoiding greens. If I want greens for breakfast, I'll eat them.
Okay,
If I want greens with lunch, I'll eat them. But usually I don't. To be quite honest, usually, unless I'm trying to lose weight or something, I'm not looking for greens at that point in the day. I'm looking for carbohydrates. I want to get some calories. It's a different problem for an athlete person, because the athlete person, like we're saying, the average lady's eating 2,000 calories a day, but the average athlete woman is eating 3,000 calories a day. So if you had to eat 50% more, it becomes a little problematic. If you increase your greens by 50%, it's a lot less volume increase to increase fruit.
Right. But that's
right?
why smoothies.
And for a guy, if I go say the average guy is eating almost 3,000 calories a day, but the average athlete guy is eating 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day. I work with a lot of athletes who eat 8,000 calories a day. Could you imagine if they took your green consumption and quadrupled it? I mean, we're finite.
That's
You
why I
can't
think
eat that much greens.
That's why I think the smoothies are so good, because you can like it reduces the volume a little bit and like makes it easier to sip on all day. But I have like the most classic question is about protein. And I'll just say my spiel on that is that all fruits and vegetables are protein. So it's about the quantity in order to get it. Paula said, ask about protein. My doctor's on my case about it. Can I get all my protein from just fruits and vegetables? What's your elevator pitch on that?
Tell your doctor that you're going to your doctor for health problems, not for nutritional advice, and that you're consulting with a nutritionist for nutritional advice. And the nutritionist has promised not to give medical advice if the doctor will promise not to give nutritional advice. That's my take.
Violin right now, but you know.
We have to understand what protein is for. Okay, carbohydrate is for fuel, fat is for insulation, and protein is for growth. As adults, we're almost not growing at all. The only thing we're doing is some repair. And so our needs for protein actually are just a few grams a day. But I don't say that irresponsibly. If you can get 30 or 40 or 50 grams of protein a day, you're safe according to all the authorities. But the bodybuilders will say, oh no, you need 0.8 grams of protein for every kilo of body weight. You know,
Have you ever
need that much. You're not trying to grow. None of us are trying to grow unless we're trying to maybe grow a little smaller. There's very
have
few
you
adults
worked with
that wanna add-
bodybuilders?
I'm sorry?
Have you worked with bodybuilders or just
Lots of them.
Okay, because I recently spoke to, and I'll have to pick a bone with him, or I'll have him watch this, or the two of you should talk. But this guy, Corin Sutton, he's a big vegan guy on Instagram, and he said he didn't believe in this. Is whatever. We're putting it all out there. He said he didn't believe in the 80-10-10 for bodybuilding because he's just trying to build the muscle. He doesn't care about like running fast or anything like that.
So there's a couple answers here. And the first one is, as we said about the super skinny person. I mean, we're talking about a small minority of the population trying to add muscle. But if I was going to look for somebody who is trying to add muscle, if I was going to look for a bodybuilder, I wouldn't go to a bunch of restaurants looking. I'd go to a gym. The way bodybuilders get big is by lifting weights.
Right.
It's not by eating food.
Right.
Food has very little to do with it.
And
one of the world's best bodybuilders ever was notorious for the amount of fruit he ate. He was a Cuban bodybuilder that actually beat Arnold, the only guy to ever beat Arnold, right? And he was called the Myth because of it. And he was notorious for the amount of fruit that he ate. And there's lots of bodybuilders who are famous for the amount of fruit they eat. But I'll tell you what, but bodybuilding is a very small percentage of people who are looking to get huge.
Right.
And that's done by the way you train. All
Right.
you have to do is eat enough, because there's lots of bodybuilders eating absolute total crap and still getting great results in terms of getting big.
Right.
There's no reason to think that.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
I
go
don't know if I don't know if you know Ted Carr. You probably do, Fruitarian.
I was on the phone with Ted Carr a couple hours ago.
Did you tell him that we were doing this with me? Oh, you should have. Ted Carr.
I
and
don't
are
know. I
best
talk to him
friends.
every Wednesday.
Do you really? Why?
Every Wednesday.
You're a business
We're-
coach?
We're creating a project together.
I want to be in on it, whatever it is, let me in. So he is Fruitarian on Instagram, and he has been like very fruit-based for a very long time.
Yes,
And
he's
he
a student of mine.
Yeah, he's now getting very big, and he wasn't before. And he's like, hey,
He's now
guys-
adding muscle to what was a very skinny frame.
yeah, exactly. And he said he's just doing that by doing more workouts.
Yeah, it's
But,
all workout. It's not food related. It's just workout. You want to put on muscle, it's a specific protocol of training.
Yeah,
If you want to get stronger, it's a completely different protocol of training. The two do not relate. They're in different worlds. It's different kinds of lifting. I've worked with tons of people, both men and women, in the physique world, and we get phenomenal results on 80-10-10. But if you want to do something else, you can disbelieve
asked most of them,
80-10-10.
yeah.
I'm okay with people who disbelieve.
yes. Abigail Evans says, take a look at the Raw Advantage. Chris Kendall, Fruitarian, who is Ted Carr. They have big muscles, and they're both raw vegans. Ted Carr is awesome. Yeah, totally. So there's a couple more questions, but I don't want to keep you too long. So
Let's go short. Let's go short answers.
Maybe we'll have to, okay, this will be this. I hope you'll have a short answer for this. Are you ready? This is a big one, kind of. This is from Wendy. Brian Clement, who is the founder of Hippocrates, says most fruit today is not natural. It's been hybridized, so it's not natural. And also he says to only eat it when it's been fully mature, that it would fall off the tree or vine. Today, most fruit is picked early for shipping and shelf life. What is your opinion on that?
I spoke to a biologist not very long ago at a raw food retreat whose father was also a biologist. He's more my age. He's been a biologist and has written many books on biology. And I asked him a similar question. And his answer was not a surprise, because I knew the answer before I asked the question, but I wanted to get the answer from a biologist. And his answer was that if we understand the way life, at least theoretically, evolved on Earth, there were these single cell organisms in the sea, and everything eventually came from that. I don't care whether you believe that or not. That's a different story another night. But all things have changed over time. If we look at the definition of hybrid, what you discover is that all plants and all animals, including us, are today hybrids of something else that came before. There is no original vegetable. There is no original plant. There is no original animal. There is no original fruit. All life on Earth, including you and me, or you and I, are hybrids. If we're going to
What
avoid
about
hybrids,
heirloom seeds? Heirloom seeds, they say, are original.
No, they don't. They say heirloom seeds have been around for 50 years or more. Let's look up the definition of
Right, but they
heirloom.
haven't been hybridized.
Of course they've been hybridized. They've been hybridized from other things. You need to look this up. And I mean, it would be a great story to say they haven't been hybridized. They've been around since the beginning of time. But heirloom foods are only 50 years old or older. That's it. It's just that they produce, heirloom means they produce true to seed. That's all it means. And that it's been around for 50 years. Not that it's been around since the beginning of time. Not if there was single cell organisms in the sea. There weren't any hybrid tomatoes, or there weren't any heirloom tomatoes. I'm sorry, that they weren't there. That's not really part of the picture. And so if we're going to avoid things that are hybrid, then we don't get to eat,
Right.
Mhm.
because there's nothing alive on planet Earth that is not a hybrid of two other things. Nothing, including us. So I can't say that I avoid hybrids. Now, do I avoid GMO like it's plague? Absolutely. But let's not mix up hybrid and GMO. They're two completely different things. Does that help?
Yeah, totally. What? Did you
Yes,
have?
thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Really look into hybrid. You'll be shocked when you find, when you find out what heirloom really is. And it turns out that heirloom furniture has to be 100 years old, but heirloom food only has to be 50. And then there's other definitions of heirloom, but it's like organic. We love to think that organic means that there was no sprays, there was no nothing. And that's not how organic really works either. It's just that they're using pesticides with a shorter half-life than the pesticides on conventional foods. So you're less likely to get severe toxicity from the organic foods. But it's still, even when you buy organic, it doesn't taste anything like what you grow in your own backyard, what
Yeah.
you lovingly grow with no chemicals at all. That's different food.
Yeah.
As far as fruits being hybridized, that's the first part. As far as it being picked at the peak of ripeness, well, gosh, there are foods that actually are better if you pick them early, like, for instance, pears and avocados. If you wait till they ripen on the tree, they've already gone mushy and they're not enjoyable to eat any longer. There are plenty of fruits like that. And there are things that are picked too early in order to get them to market. I full well recognize that market forces don't always bring you the highest quality. If you're going to become adept at eating 80-10-10, you're going to have to learn enough about fruit to be able to know when persimmon season is and when strawberry season is, and when cherry season is and when apples are in season.
And that's
eat them
why,
at the height of season,
yeah.
rather than, which is why I gave seasonal recipes, right?
Yep,
Because
yep.
a lot of people don't know. They're really, really out of touch with what grows when.
Mhm.
Whereas for me, I'm looking forward every month. I know, oh, it's December. It's persimmon season. I can really capitalize on persimmon. And it's January. I'm going to get all the pomegranates that I could ever want to eat in January. It's May. It's strawberry time. It's June. It's lychee season. It's whatever. And we know the different fruits are going to come, because that's the way nature provides for us. Every 3 to 4 weeks, a new fruit comes into season, or even a whole new genre of fruits like citrus, and they're in season for 6-8 weeks, and that's the height of season. And then you move on to the next. So at a meal, for optimum digestion, you can eat very simply, but in the course of a year, you can eat a tremendous amount of variety because the nature provides it for us automatically.
Yep. So I think that, it's ultimately just doing the best that you can, not getting too stuck up in the minutia of it, because
there's people eating at McDonald's and they're
Right.
not worrying about this stuff.
Right.
I'm sure not worrying about it, eating mostly fruits and vegetables.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, well, Doug, you have been awesome, awesome, awesome. This was a like beyond dream for all of us. And I know it's really late there, so I don't want to keep you. I just want to thank
Now you got me up.
Yeah, I know. I want to thank everybody who came here really, truly from the bottom of my heart. There's like a good amount of people here, some from Doug's group, some from ours, and it's a really cool combination. Those of you, anybody here who hasn't bought Doug's book, definitely do that. And anybody who hasn't followed Perfect Foods and knows what we're about, definitely do that. I'm gonna post a link here to Perfect Foods where you can check us out a little bit and see if you're into sprouting or microgreens and adding these things into your diet, that you can check us out. And also just being a part of this community. If you want to come in on the Wednesdays, we'll have other guest speakers. Hopefully, maybe we'll even have Doug again. And we really every week try and motivate and inspire each other to be the best versions of ourselves and stick to this no matter the ups and the downs. So if you click on that link, actually put a 1 in the chat if you learned something today. Put a 1 in the chat if you've been inspired and you learned something today. And put a 2 in the chat if you want to continue to do this lifestyle. You've had trouble in the past and you want to be kind of like pushed and bugged to continue. And
Thank you. I'm watching them click by.
yes, thank you. 1 and 2, Paula says. So those of you who put the 2, I'll try and shoot you an email to see if I can help you in any way. Those of you who put a 1, stay with us and continue to follow the 2 of us. I'm sure we'll have plenty of things that we'll be posting. And yeah, let us know your feedback and how you enjoyed this and what you want to do in order to continue this. I encourage you all to write in your notebook tonight before you go to bed. Like, you know, what did you learn? What do you want to continue to do? What's one thing that you'll do this week to add in and like, you know, do this with us. So does anybody also now put a 3 in the chat if you'd actually like to do this for even a week or let's say a month with me. If you would like to do that with me, I'm hoping to do this in January. So
that was going to be my question, is when are you doing your month?
yes, I'm going to do it in January.
It's a tough month.
That's okay.
Tough, it's cold.
That's okay.
July would be easier.
I know.
That's okay. That's okay. I started my first cleanse last year, 2 years ago in January, and I do it every year in January. So I eat this way anyway, mostly. So it's okay. So cool. So we've got Sherry, we've got Abigail, Paula, Heidi, Marilla, Anne Marie Grant, all of you. I'll be sure to message me about it and I'll have you guys in it. Jen is a 3-ish, so we'll talk, Jen. But hopefully Doug will be on that journey with us. So maybe we'll even have him come on again.
I would love to come on with you.
Yeah, so everybody put that in your calendars, keep it in mind. And in the beginning of January, we'll start this. Yeah, just message me all on my, probably on my Instagram would be best if you guys are on Instagram, Instagram.com, Perfect Foods Inc. If y'all don't follow me, do that, follow Doug. And it's been a total pleasure. So does anybody have, I'll let you go, Doug, but if anybody has any more immediate questions, I'll be here just for a few more minutes. But
well, I'm looking forward to coming back. I hope I get invited.
Oh, 100%. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, I think we'll have who put a 4 in the chat if you want Doug back in January.
That's an automatic invite,
Gail says 4, 4, 4, 4, 4.
Rich.
Jen says 4.
Hey, Carla,
Carla
nice to see you. Oh my gosh, I see so many people here that I know.
Can I just give a quick testimonial very
Yeah.
fast?
Please do.
I got Doug's book years ago and the chart is like off the charts. It's like amazing. That big folding chart is like amazing. I was like, what? It's crazy. It's really good. And so thank you. And then a testimonial. I know Rebecca and the Matzels, and I'm not in New York anymore, but when I'm there, I can't get enough of their sprouts are the best. Their microgreens, all
I'm
their
sure they are.
sprouts, and everything they put out is fantastic. So I highly recommend Perfect Foods and Doug's book and his chart.
Yay,
Thank you.
thank you, Emmy. Thank you, Abigail and Sherry and Shirley, Marilla, Svetlana, thanks for coming. Willow, Andrea, thanks, good to see you. Gail, Brenda, Terry, you said that you were enjoying this. You had a really interesting question about citrus versus like sweet foods. Can you have those two together? I assumed yes.
Typically, digestion isn't going to be great if you go with really acidy fruit
Okay. So you
and
don't do
really
that,
sweet fruit. Typically, orange and banana taste good, but it's not always going to sit that well.
Yep. Goldie, David Hogg, I heard good things about you. Joylyn, we've been on this journey for a long time. Heidi and everybody, thank you so much for coming. Thanks, Mom. And I'll see you guys in January. Bye, guys.
Okay.